of a quorum.
Councilor Baker. Councilor Siomo. Councilor Flaherty.
What you say? Who? Oh, no.
Councilor Baker.
Madam Clerk, could you please begin the roll again?
I will. Councilor Baker. Here. Councilor Siomo. Present. Councilor Flaherty. Here. Councilor Jackson. Here. Councilor LaMattina. Here. Councilor Linehan.
Here.
Councilor McCarthy.
Here.
Councilor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor O'Malley.
Present.
Councilor Presley. Councilor Wu. Councilor Yancey. And Councilor Zachem. We have a unanimous presence. Mr. President.
Well, thank you, Madam Clerk. I've been informed by the clerk that a quorum is present. And I'd like to say that everybody, especially the gentlemen, are all in pink today and recognizing Breast Cancer Awareness Week. So we all got the memo and we all complied. At this time, I'd ask that for all councilors and guests to please rise. I invite Councilor O'Malley to the podium so he can introduce today's clergy. After the invocation is delivered, I would ask all members and guests to remain standing as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilor O'Malley. Councilor O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my distinct honor to introduce our clergy member this afternoon, someone who I consider a friend, someone who I consider a mentor. The Reverend Annie Rousseau is the weekend pastor at Hope Central Church in Jamaica Plain. She is no stranger to this body and to many people in this building. She is a passionate advocate for social justice, which I know drives her in her faith and in her politics. She's someone who is just incredibly kind, has a wonderful family in Jamaica Plain and beyond, is a diehard Red Sox fan. I think we're all going to need to pray a little bit harder for them this year, Rev, or next year perhaps. But she's just really an incredible leader, not only in Jamaica Plain, but throughout the entire city of Boston, and I dare say the Commonwealth. So please join me in welcoming Reverend Annie Rousseau for today's invocation.
Let us pray. God of all nations and peoples, we are grateful for the dreams of freedom, justice, and peace forever spun by your Spirit. God of awesome holiness, bless these public servants today. May they be given the power of discernment to know what is right and good for all the citizens of Boston. Multiply their courage so that they dare to accept the challenges that diminish and separate us. Inspire them so that they may be the source of bold ideas. Grace them with sensitivity so that they may be compassionate leaders of our city. We ask your blessings, too, on their families, colleagues, and dedicated staff who support them in their work. God of power, strengthen them to help shape a city where all our children will be free of the burdens of racism and sexism, fear and exploitation, violence and indifference. A city where all people work with dignity and are rewarded fairly and are respected fully. God of glory, strengthen them to help shape a city where our mutual values are reflected in decent homes, good schools, safe neighborhoods, glad gatherings, respected differences, a city where older persons are not forgotten, but honored for their experience, cherished for their gifts, and sought for their wisdom. God of mercy, strengthen them to help shape a city where life's poetry is realized, justice attended, joy pervasive, hope lived, and together with you and with each other, we build what is beautiful, true, and worthy of your generosity to us. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Annie Rousseau, for your inspiring invocation message and also for your commitment to our great city. Thank you. Councilor O'Malley. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty. Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor O'Malley will escort Reverend Annie Rousseau from the chamber. If there are no corrections to be made to the minutes of last week's meetings, they will stand approved. Seeing and hearing no objections, the minutes are so approved. Councilor Flaherty, would you like to, Councilor Flaherty? What happened? Okay, I just see everybody wondering why you're on crutches. Okay. I thought we'd get the answer early. Communications from His Honor the Mayor. Madam Clerk, if you'd please read docket 1551 through 1560. Do you have that? Oh, do you have that right?
Thank you, Mr. President. Docket number 1551, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and expend supplemental funds of $611,174 to the FY11 and FY14 Community-Based Violence Prevention Demonstration Project Grant for the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, which will be used to implement evidence-based strategy that will positively impact violent crime trends. Docket number 1552, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and expend a grant of $492,334 from the U.S. Department of Justice, the Bureau of Justice Assistance Funds, for the FY14 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant for the Boston Police Department for the purposes of supporting crime prevention and law enforcement. Docket number 1553, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and accept and expend supplemental grant of $375,000 from the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, funded under the FY11 and FY14 Smart Policing Evidence-Based Law Enforcement Grant Program. Docket number 1554, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and expend a grant of $306,731 from the U.S. Department of Justice for the FY14 DNA Capacity Enhancement and Backlog Reduction Program. Docket number 1555, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and expend supplemental funding grant of $222,200 to the FY12 and FY14 demonstration programs continuation from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, used to support the development and enhancement of Youth Violence Prevention Plan. Docket number 1556, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and expend a grant of $175,000 for the FY14 Paul Coverdell National Forensic Science Improvements Program grant funded by the National Institute of Justice for the purpose of providing support to the Forensic Analysis Unit of the Boston Police Department. Docket number 1557, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and expend the FY 2014 Violence Against Women Act STOP grant of $60,000 from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, used to support the BPD Civilian Domestic Violence Advocate. Docket number 1558, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and expend a grant of $20,467 to fund the FY13 Paul Coverdell National Forensic Science Improvement Program grant funded by the National Institute of Justice and passed through the Massachusetts State Police. Docket number 1559, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and expend a grant of $10,000 from the FY13 National Institute of Justice, Social Science Research and Forensic Science, passed through from the University of Illinois Champaign, from the purpose to support analysis data collection and reporting by the Boston Police Department's Crime Lab and Office of Research and Development. Docket number 1560, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and expend a grant of $5,000 from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health for the purpose of collecting and reporting data.
Dockets 1551 through 1560 will be assigned to the Committee on Public Safety. Madam Clerk, docket 1561, please.
Docket 1561, message and order authorizing the Office of Neighborhood Services to accept and expend a grant of $1,000 from the Pioneer Institute from the City Hall to Go program.
Councilor McCarthy moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1561. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and docket 1561 has passed. Madam Clerk, report of public officers and others. And could you please read 1562 through 1564?
Docket number 1562, communication was received from President Linehan regarding members of the City Council as a whole will be attending the Research Bureau luncheon on Friday, November 7th at 12 p.m. Docket number 1563, communication was received from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities regarding NSTAR Electric Company petition pursuant to Section 6 of Chapter 665 of the Acts of 1956 for the exemption from the Boston zoning for a substation at Electric Avenue and approval pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 164, Section 72, to construct and operate two 115-kilowatt transmission lines in Boston. Docket number 1564, communication was received from Sally D. Glora, City Auditor, regarding transfer for the purpose of closing accounts for the fiscal year 2014.
Dockets 1562 through 1564 will be placed on file. Matters recently heard for possible action, Madam Clerk.
Docket number 0587, message and order approving a special law regarding an act establishing a special events fund in the city of Boston.
The chair recognizes the chair of the Committee on Government Operations, Councilor Flaherty, on docket 0587.
Urge for passage in a new draft on docket 0587, home rule petition establishing a special events fund in the city of Boston. It was filed by the mayor on April the 4th. We had a hearing Monday, October the 6th. In a sense, this fund would establish, it's a separate fund that would be able to accept voluntary private donations to support local events. The fund would be controlled by a 5-member board who were appointed by the mayor, and we discussed many things at the hearing as to the types of events that this fund would be helping to secure. The NBA and NFL draft, the daytime Emmys, that's of interest to my colleagues to my left, first night celebration, NCAA regional tournaments, winter classics again, tall ships, the gay games, championship parades, and of course, as we're starting to engage in discussions around the Olympics, I assume that the Olympics would be part of that as well. So language is added to require that the board meet quarterly and to submit an annual report to the mayor and to the Boston City Council. So at this time, I recommend passage in a new draft. And for those, for further edification, it's different from the revolving fund, the City Hall Plaza revolving fund, which revolves around fees and receipts. This would be a fund that strictly takes direct donations. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Councilor Flaherty moves acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 0587 in a new draft. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 0587 has been passed in a new draft. Madam Clerk, please read docket 1397.
Docket 1397, message and order authorizing the Commissioner of Parks and Recreation Department to accept and expend a grant of $450,000 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs Urban Parks Grant Program for renovations to the Elliott Berry Grounds and the Buena Vista and Puddingstone Garden and Buena Vista Warren Gardens Urban Wilds, located in the Roxbury neighborhood of Boston.
The chair recognizes the chair of the Committee on City, Neighborhood Services, and Veterans Affairs, Councilor McCarthy, on docket 1397.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Docket number 1397. There were three members of the Boston Parks Department present at the hearing. I'd also like to thank Councilor Yancey for attending the hearing with me. The details of the project were very thorough, repairing stone walls, repairing wrought iron fences, making the pathways in the cemetery and the park ADA compliant, general care and maintenance for the historic properties. I urge this body to pass docket number 1397.
Thank you, Councilor McCarthy. Councilor Jackson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor McCarthy for moving this. This allows for, in particular in the Warren Gardens area, for land that's currently gated to actually be put back online. We obviously know that part of our city is landfill, and Roxbury is actually called Roxbury because there's rock there. And it allows for us to preserve the Pudding Stone Park and many of the other features there. So really excited about this funding coming through, and it's a great grant to receive from the state of Massachusetts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Councilor Yancey, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Councilor McCarthy ran a fantastic hearing. We heard testimony from the administration and other advocates, and I think this is a very symbolic gesture, but very important one, to renovate the Elliott Burial Ground, the Buena Vista and Pudding Stone Gardens, and especially the garden located at the intersection of Seaver Street and Normandy Street in the Grove Hall section of Boston. One of my longest living constituents, who was active in the community for more than 60 years, recently passed away, Peter Crawford. And it's my understanding that part of this grant will be used to memorialize him in the park that he fought so adamantly for and ardently for, the Pudding Stone Garden. So I'm looking forward to this passing today, and looking forward to his widow, Helen Crawford, to come with us as we celebrate this great investment. So I urge suspension and passage on a unanimous vote on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Yancey. Councilor McCarthy moves acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 1397. All in favor say aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1397 has been passed. I'd like to just recognize that we have some guests, special guests from the Ukraine, who are here both from City Council and from the Parliament. They're here on our left. Could you rise, please, to be recognized? On behalf of the Boston City Council, we thank you and welcome you here to our fine city, and hope that this is the beginning of new relations with the city of Boston and your city. So thank you very much. Madam Clerk, please read docket 0180.
Docket 0180, order for a loan of $120 million for the planning, designing, acquiring land for, constructing and originally equipping structures and facilities and/or for remodeling, reconstructing, or making major alterations, additions, and major repairs to existing facilities, including original equipment and landscaping, including the planting of shade trees, paving and other site improvements, incidental or directly related to such remodeling, reconstruction, or repair for the purpose of the school department, high school in Mattapan.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Committee on Ways and Means, Councilor Siomo, on docket 0180.
Thank you, Mr. President. We held a hearing at Mattapan Branch Library last night. It was very well attended. We had testimony from John McDonough, Carlton Jones from the school department. Several of our colleagues attended, including Councilor McCarthy, who has some of that district, Councilor Presley, as well as myself. and Councilor Jackson as well. At this time, we had the hearing at 6 p.m., and it was over around 9 p.m. I haven't had a chance to come up with a comprehensive committee report. So at this time, I'd like to recommend that we keep it in committee and produce the committee report for next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Siomo. Councilor Yancey.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to thank Councilor Siomo. He ran a very thorough hearing. There was well over 100 people who participated in the hearing, many of whom stayed for the entire 3 hours and offered testimony. This was a very powerful hearing of the Ways and Means Committee. The testimony was very enthusiastic in support of building this high school. There was not one word of opposition from anyone who testified, including the administration. In fact, Mr. President, we heard from a former member, the longest-serving member of the Boston School Committee, who testified very dramatically and said that she supports, this is Elfrida Harris, she supports the construction of Boston's first new high school since 1979 on the site of the Boston State Hospital site. Mr. President, we also heard from L.B. Holland, who is a current interim headmaster of Madison, and he testified enthusiastically in favor of building a high school on the Boston State Hospital site now. We heard from Mr. Stutman, the president of the Boston Teachers Union, who insisted that we construct a new state-of-the-art high school on the grounds of the Boston State Hospital site now. Mr. President, this body has gone on record in the past of supporting law and order for the purpose of constructing a new high school. In fact, in the year 2000, I know only a few of us were around at the time, there was a unanimous vote. We voted the first and second reading. Unfortunately, in his wisdom, the mayor vetoed that law and order in the year 2000, arguing that the city could not afford to do it. The irony in that, Mr. President, is during that same period of time, our esteemed mayor successfully argued that we should raise $60 million to host the Democratic Convention in 2004. And I supported that, and I supported the mayor in that effort. But it's very ironic that it would have cost the city of Boston only $6 million in the year 2000 to build that high school. The total cost would have been $57 million, but at that time the state had a policy of reimbursing the city 90%. So the $6 million is 10%, a little more than 10% of the $57 million. So why is that important? This is a new day in the city of Boston. We have more than 4,000 Boston Public High School students who are attending substandard facilities by the definition of the administration. Thousands of our children graduated from high school without having the experience of a state-of-the-art high school. Many weren't even going to high school buildings. Mr. President, with all due respect to the chairman, who I love, admire, and respect, I would ask that we do a first reading today. And I make that request, not only because we've been working on this since 1995 in response to the Blue Ribbon Commission report, and that Blue Ribbon Commission was selected by Mayor Menino shortly after he was elected. And they did a very comprehensive study of all of our school facilities, and they came up with a series of recommendations, many of which have been implemented. For example, it recommended that we build 3 new K-8 schools. and they were done in East Boston, Roxbury, and Mattapan. I commend the administration for that, and I supported it. But unfortunately, that Blue Ribbon Commission, made up of well-respected leaders in the city of Boston, architects, engineers, and experts, who took a complete and thorough inventory of all of our schools. They recommend that we build 2 new state-of-the-art high schools back in 1996. Those recommendations were not implemented. Instead, we placed many of our high school students in elementary school buildings and middle school buildings, and a building that was condemned even after Latin Academy students attended there. That's the Ipswich Street property, where the Boston Arts Academy students currently sit as I speak. So my recommendation is that we take a first reading today. We have to wait 2 weeks before we can take the second reading. And in that 2 weeks period of time, if there are any unanswered questions, I'm sure the administration would be happy to comply. And I would also say that this proposal is supported by, again, hundreds of people in the community. Many people couldn't be there. We have more than 3,000 signatures of Boston residents calling for the construction of this high school at this particular location. This construction will create between 400 and 450 construction jobs. It would add up to $30 million in payroll and benefits, 130 permanent jobs, $10 million in payroll for those permanent jobs, and can accommodate upwards of 1,250 students. Mr. President, I think the students of Boston have waited long enough. This is not a new proposal. Those of you who were relatively new to the City Council know that it's not just a passion of mine, but it's a passion of hundreds of people in the City of Boston. And we've studied this issue very thoroughly. And before you even have a statement from a prior superintendent of schools when he was the chief operating officer for the City of Boston. This is dated December 6, 2004. The City of Boston strongly supports the construction of a new high school in Mattapan. A Mattapan High School would relieve pressure on existing facilities and enhance the geographic diversity of our high school locations. The Boston State Hospital site is an ideal location in terms of service area and potential available acreage. 20 acres of land was designated by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the explicit purpose of building a Boston public high school, not a private school, not a parochial school, not a charter school, a Boston public high school. Because our high school students are competing with other high school students throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They have brand new facilities. I know, thank you for your indulgence, I'll close. It's not fair that there's not one student in the city of Boston attending a state-of-the-art high school. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to us in the future. So I will ask, Mr. President, and I will ask the chairman as well, to allow a first reading with a commitment, if we have to do any additional working sessions or meetings or any additional data. The information before you has been supplied by the administration. The sketch of the plot plan for the high school was not created by Councilor Yancey. It was created by the administration when they applied for this site in the late 1990s. Mr. President, this is valuable real estate. It's not going to be around forever. I know some folks thought it was going away in 2005. It has not. It's still available. The CAC supports it. And again, I thank Councilor Presley, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor Jackson, Councilor Siomo for being there yesterday. And I also thank Councilor Murphy and Councilor Flaherty for the past support of this, and each and every one of you for listening to me once again. I know you've heard me hundreds of times, but once again, on the need to build high schools, and this school will be for all the students in the city of Boston.
Thank
not
you,
just
Councilor
Madison.
Yancey.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you for that. And Councilor Wu, your button was pushed. Councilor Wu, you have the floor.
I just wanted to thank Councilor Yancey for his advocacy and Councilor Siomo for convening the committee hearing out in the neighborhood so that residents would be able to have the chance to fully participate. I personally didn't have a chance. I had another commitment, so wasn't able to be there, and want to make sure that I'm fully informed on everything and able to review the tape. So I just wanted to clarify, if the vote happens today, that I am fully supportive of making sure that we are giving our students every opportunity and that we're recognizing inequities across the district. But for me personally, if we are to vote on this today, I would be a no vote, just to wait for more information in the committee report and to get myself more caught up on the vote, because I believe a loan order of $120 million is significant. The fact that it requires two separate votes, 2 weeks apart, I think lends extra weight to that significance. So, but just wanted to clarify my position today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wu. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilor Yancey, for holding the hearing. Councilor Siomo, Councilor Jackson, as well as Councilor Presley. To do the meeting justice, Councilor Yancey said there was about 100 people there. But it wasn't just 100 people. These were people who have been community leaders for years and years and years. And the question that I've asked really rhetorically to Councilor Yancey, because I already know the answer, $57 million to build a building in 2001, $120 million to build a building now. As we continue to wait, clearly, it gets more and more expensive. 20 acres of land. Where else do we have 20 acres of land to build a campus-style high school in the city of Boston? And this clearly isn't about Mattapan, and it's not about District 5. This is about the kids from Boston coming into a state-of-the-art facility. This also has a possibility of having some vocational programs, state-of-the-art arts, music, science, and an athletic complex that would be really second to none for our kids in Boston. Whether we read this today or we read this later, I'll be in the affirmative. I'm looking forward to continuing to work with Councilor Yancey. And, again, I go back to the meeting last night. There were people who've been passionate in the neighborhood for 20, 30, 40. And one gentleman, I forget his name, 90 years old. 90 years old, who goes to this meeting, and he's talking about how he went to the Boston Public Schools, how he went to war, and how the community could be changed by having this high school. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor McCarthy. Councilor Jackson.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise to thank Councilor Yancey for staying on message. I rise to thank Councilor Yancey for advocating for the young people of the city of Boston. In my position as chair of education, I've gotten an opportunity to go across the city and look at the state of our schools. One of the things that we know is that every charter school seat that opens up, we lose a child. But every charter school that I've gone into has revitalized facilities. Every single one of them has smart boards, and they've done over every single one of those buildings. Many of you are being asked to come to the brand new Edward Brook. Many of you used to know it as Lena Park. Brand new facility. So we wonder why we're losing students. Well, we're losing students not only based on the quality of the education, and we'll have a discussion about that later, but we are not putting our young people in a place, in a position where they can actually compete. And what we all talk about is 21st century education. We talk about STEAM, science, technology, engineering, and math. But we have buildings that literally were run on steam when they were constructed. We have to be willing to stand on the side of the young people of the city of Boston. We have to be willing to stand on the side of the Boston Public Schools in order to fight the most important fight. I think one of the most salient points that Councilor Yancey brings forward is none of the high school students in the city of Boston today are going to school in a 21st century, completely decked out school that is at the level of a 2014 student. We are moving from MCAS to PARCC. The PARCC test, ladies and gentlemen, is given only online. It's not a paper test. And we now question whether or not our young people are able to actually take this test because of the buildings and the lack of bandwidth that our facilities have. Our young people have been able to do pretty well, not because of the facilities, but in spite of the facilities in the city of Boston. We have the oldest school system and the oldest school in the whole country. And many of you went to that school. Couple, you're not wearing purple, you're wearing pink today, I understand. But when it comes down to it, knowing that we have the oldest school should mean that we should have the most aggressive revitalization program that is out there. We failed to take advantage, and I will say this again, we failed to take advantage of our fair share of the Mass School Building Authority, as Councilor Yancey brought up, when we had 90% reimbursement. Now it's at 78%. Are we going to wait till it goes down to 58% and we don't take advantage of this? And understand those dollars come from the city of Boston because we are the economic engine of the state of Massachusetts because they're a penny out of each sales tax dollar. So, Mr. President, whether this comes forward now, whether it comes forward later, or whether it comes forward in the future, I am all in to make sure that we support the young people, again, not only of Mattapan. Every single high school in the city of Boston is a citywide school. This is a school located in Mattapan, but that would be open and available to every single young person in the city of Boston. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Councilor Presley?
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, want to commend the chair for holding the hearing in the neighborhood last night and just reiterating some of my remarks of yesterday that I think are important to underscore. This has been a mission of Councilor Yancey's in the same way that the police station upgrade was a mission of Councilor Yancey's, in the same way that the building of the Mattapan Library was a mission of Councilor Yancey's. But none of those things have been a personal charge of his, per se. What he is doing is on behalf of his district. And based upon the strong attendance last night, again, it is clear that we're long overdue in this regard. In this chamber, we have fought for investments in housing because we believe that families cannot thrive in subpar housing. Well, if we're all committed to teaching the whole child, you can't be committed to teaching the whole child if they're not even in a whole building. So if we know families cannot thrive in subpar conditions, our students certainly cannot thrive in subpar conditions. This is about their readiness to learn. This is about what's fair to our teachers. I think it is noteworthy that the president of the Boston Teachers Union, Richard Stutman, vigorously endorsed this. And it's just long overdue. We have made formidable investments in the Mattapan community that I believe will support this school. Because you do need both. You can't just have a state-of-the-art facility and not be making those investments in the neighborhood around that school, because the school will not succeed. Education is the equalizer, but family and community are the stabilizer. We've made investments, and Councilor Yancey led the fight for that as well, for a new health center, a library, a community center. These are all things that would support and work in symbiotic partnership to see that school thrive and excel. But again, if we agree that families cannot thrive in subpar housing, certainly we can agree that our young people cannot thrive in schools that are in disrepair and falling apart around them. And moreover, it is demoralizing. It sends an awful message about how much we value our students and the investment that we're willing to make in them and their future to ensure that they are competitive. But in the words of Councilor Turner yesterday, that they know that we care. They see development and upgrades happening throughout the city. And we don't want to create a hierarchy or a tiering system for what neighborhoods and who is worthy of those investments. And again, just to underscore that it is a state-of-the-art facility that would be housed in the beautiful community that is Mattapan. It is not a school just to serve Mattapan. So I want to commend Councilor Yancey for his leadership. I Whether there's a reading today or at the next meeting, as I have in the past, I will vote in the affirmative.
Thank you, Councilor Presley. Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd first like to thank Councilor Yancey for his words on this. I do not agree with them. I also want to highlight what Councilor McCarthy had to say about maybe a dorm style or campus style high school. I believe the time is here. But because the last administration kicked this can down the road for 10 or 12 years, I don't think it's necessarily fair to in the first year of this new administration to mandate $120 million now. I'd like to see buy-in from across the hall. And another thing that we haven't spoken about is we're waiting on a facilities master plan from the school department. So although I do not disagree with Councilor Yancey, I will not be voting in the affirmative today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. I'm going to take a quick recess. Will Councilor Yancey and Councilor Siomo please come to the dais? The discussion was on docket 0180, and it will remain in the Committee on Ways and Means. Motions, orders, and resolutions.
Docket number 1565, Councilor Zachem offered the following order for the section of Rule 34 of the 2014-2015 rules of the Boston City Council, prohibiting committees from holding hearings on the day of any regular meeting of the council, be suspended on Wednesday, October 29th, 2014, to have a hearing of the Special Committee on Transportation, Public Infrastructure, Planning, and Investment.
Are you going to say something? Okay. Councilor Zachem moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1565. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1565 has passed. Madam Clerk, 1566.
Docket number 1566, Councilors Wu and O'Malley offered the following order for a hearing on fossil fuel divestment of the City of Boston's funds.
Chair recognizes Councilor Wu on docket 1566.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we're all in agreement that climate change is one of the most pressing issues facing this generation, and there's been a lot of attention, especially nationally, around the movement in the last couple of weeks and months. We also know the data shows that coal, oil, gas, the fossil fuel companies are contributing directly to these problems. Boston has already done a lot and is doing a lot in terms of mitigating climate change and adapting to it with our climate action plan, with changes to zonings for more resiliency to anticipate superstorms and other impacts. I'm proud to introduce today with Councilor O'Malley one more step that we could potentially take. And this is a hearing order to call for, to discuss the idea of divesting from fossil fuel companies with the city's money, and a way to put our money where our mouth is. The idea is that we as a city are already investing funds, our retirees' pension plans, and they're sitting in investment stocks, mutual funds, bank accounts. This is not to take away any of the returns on that or to threaten the pension funds or what our retirees would be getting, but just to potentially reallocate those funds to invest in companies that better align with our mission and our values around sustainability and renewability and green energy. This is a movement that was really catapulted by campuses, students getting their universities to divest, Stanford University being one of the most high profile to do it recently, and other now businesses and foundations following suit, like the Rockefeller Foundation. There are a lot of questions to follow on how this would happen and what the impacts would be. First of all, what do we mean by divesting from fossil fuel? There are a couple different ways to do it, whether it's just pulling all of our money from any company that has large reserves of coal, oil, or gas, or from the companies that have the biggest carbon footprints. So this is all matters that would have to be hammered out in discussions with the city, with the retirement board, with others who are experts in this field. I do know that there has been a lot of research done to show that divesting from fossil fuels does not result in a negligible negative impact on investments overall. So I believe it'd be a great decision for the taxpayers, for our retirees, for the city, and for the planet. So looking forward to having this conversation, and hope that everybody will participate as we continue moving forward.
Thank you, Councilor Wu. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the chair of the Council's Committee on Environment and Parks, I am thrilled to partner with my good colleague, the at-large councilor from the South End, Councilor Wu, on this very important initiative. This is something that's good policy, good for the environment, and the right thing to do. When it comes to climate change, there are many things that we know that are irrefutable notions. The first is that CO2 emissions in the U.S. are responsible for more than 80% of greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere, and the majority of those CO2 emissions come from fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas. We know that climate change is directly linked with these emissions, and we've seen it firsthand in cities. We all remember Superstorm Sandy a couple of years ago. The city of Boston was extraordinarily lucky that the fact that the storm hit in between tides. Had it come a couple hours earlier or later, the devastation could have rivaled what happened alongside the Jersey Shore. this body, the city, and this body in particular, has taken some really important green steps in making sure that Boston is an environmentally responsible city. They range from the smaller quality of life issues, like when we passed a resolution to go to paperless pay stubs or encouraging more water filling stations and bubblers, to passing the Boston Energy Reporting and Disclosure Ordinance, BERDO, as we did last year. That was a very important message, and this proposed investment is another arrow in that quiver in going forward to make Boston a greener city. Mayor Walsh deserves tremendous credit. This has been a focus of his since he took office, to make sure that Boston is environmentally sound and offers some good initiatives. And I think that this is just another way that we can talk about leveraging the city's vast investments into making a more socially responsible, environmentally friendly city, and really help set the tone. Other cities are doing this around the Commonwealth. Cambridge, Framingham, and Amherst have done it. It makes sense for Boston to leverage the enormous resources we have to continue this conversation. Once again, thank my good colleague and friend, Councillor Wu, for her leadership in this. It's wonderful to work together with you on this important issue, and I hope that all of our colleagues will join us in this conversation going forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor O'Malley. Councillor Murphy would like his name added. Councillor McCarthy, Councillor LaMartina, Councillor Jackson, the chair, Councillor Zakem, and Ayanna Presley. I'm sorry, and Councillor Presley. I'm waving. Oh God, this is going to be a long day. How am I doing so far? Oh, and please add Councillor Flaherty's name. I better just go from left to right from now on, and that way I won't get confused. So we're, docket 156 will be assigned to the Committee on Ways and Means and the Committee on Environment and Parks.
Docket number 1567, Councilor Zakem offered the following ordinance extending protections for tenants facing displacement by condominium or cooperative conversion pursuant to the city's authority under state statute state law of 1983, Chapter 527.
Chair recognizes Councilor Zakem on docket 1567.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm introducing this ordinance. It's an extension of an existing law that expires on December 31st of this year. It provides some protection for tenants in apartment units throughout the city of Boston that when their landlords are converting to condominiums or co-ops and the tenants are forced to move, being displaced by this action. As we've talked over and over again on this floor, individually, I think throughout our districts and throughout the city, housing costs in Boston continue to rise. They continue to outpace inflation. And housing availability, affordability is a real and pressing issue for many families in the city of Boston. So working with the Department of Neighborhood Development, Greater Boston Legal Services, other advocates in this area, we've worked on updating this by increasing the amounts that are paid to help tenants, former tenants, with their moving expenses. These increases are to reflect not only cost of living, but also the rising housing prices of Boston, which has outpaced inflation dramatically for the past 10 or 15 years. These numbers have not been raised in 10 years, and this reauthorization would extend the time of this ordinance for another 5 years. So I certainly hope we'll look forward to working with the Chairman of Government Operations to schedule a hearing expeditiously, as if this law is not enacted before the end of this calendar year, many of our constituents, friends, neighbors may be facing loss of these protections throughout the city of Boston. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Zakem. Councilor Yancey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to commend a colleague from District 8. I appreciate his vigilance. I think both Councilor Murphy and I voted for this back in 1998 or so. We're very concerned about the impact of rising rents and the impact of condo conversions. Even though the state outlawed rent control, this body still has some influence on housing policy. And I believe our policy should be to do everything we can to allow, particularly our longer-term residents of Boston and newly graduated high school and college students to be able to remain in the city of Boston. And that's becoming increasingly difficult. In a very real sense, Mr. President, we have become a victim of our own success. Boston has a booming economy, but not everyone is sharing that economy. And far too many people are being displaced by it because of gentrification. So I, Mr. President, would like to have my name added, and I commend the maker.
Thank you, Councilor Yancey. Madam Clerk, please add Councilor Yancey's name and add my name, add Councilor Siomo's name, add Councilor LaMartina, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Murphy, Councilor Presley, and Councilor, I didn't see whose light was first, Councilor Jackson. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I think as we discuss this issue of affordable housing and what it means in the city of Boston, the Cleveland Fed recently came out with numbers that show Boston is the fastest gentrifying city in the whole country. And sadly, this is actually at the tail, this piece of legislation deals with things at the tail end as people are actually moving. But I think it is important that we relook at and update all of the legislation in reference to things that help people as they move, and also adjust them up, knowing that things cost a lot more, in particular moving in the city of Boston. And so I want to compliment Councilor Zakem for his great work and his leadership in housing, and also in his work in making sure that it's been a safe environment in the city of Boston. He's to be complimented in a short period of time here on the council for some great work. Please add my name.
Please add Councilor Jackson's name, Madam Clerk. Councilor Wu.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to give an extra special thanks to Councilor Zakem for pushing this. The urgency of it was really underscored to me a couple weekends ago at an event I was at with Councilor Siomo, hosted by the Allston Brighton CDC, on housing issues in those two neighborhoods, where they showed statistics saying that in the last year, 25% of all home sales went to non-owner occupied purchasers. So that's an incredibly high number, where a quarter of the housing stock in that neighborhood is being flipped to potentially condos or other conversions for students, for large developers who don't live there. So there are many neighborhoods across the city where this is extremely urgent. So I want to underscore the timeliness there. The ordinance also I think, skillfully provides for special protections for the elderly, handicapped, and low to moderate income tenants. So it's great what we already have, and looking forward to supporting how we can extend it. Oh, please add my name.
Thank you, Councilor Wu. Docket 1567 is assigned to the Committee on Oh, would you like your name added? Councilor O'Malley would like his name added. And docket 1567 is assigned to the Committee on Government Operations. I'm informed by the clerk that there are no late file matters at this time. Anybody wishing to remove a matter from the green sheets? Councilor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise to pull docket 1471, put it on the floor for a discussion, possible amendments, and possible passage in a new draft, and we'll defer it to you as the lead sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll read that into. In the Committee on Government Operations, docket number 1471, sponsored by Councilor Linehan, ordinance amending COB Code of Ordinance, Chapter 2-8.1, salary of city councilors. It was referred to committee on 9/17/2014, a hearing on 9/29/2014.
Chair recognizes Council President Bill Linehan.
As many of you know, we had a very robust and involved hearing last week on this matter. This matter is similar, or is exactly the same, as matters that have faced the City Council for decades. It is the duty and responsibility of the Council to set, by a vote, their salaries. those of the mayors and department heads. We set a department head's salary earlier this year. It's an ordinance. It can be initiated by the mayor or the councilor, like all other ordinances. No one else. No one else can do it. So since I lead this body, and I thank you for that opportunity, I proposed this docket. And I understand that it's difficult, and especially for our newest members who have just been elected 9 months ago, and the mayor who was just elected 9 months ago, surely do not feel that this is a time, an appropriate time to discussing a matter of giving yourself a raise. And all of us would prefer not to be in this awkward position. But it's our responsibility and no one else's responsibility to address the matter. This matter in the past was settled by votes in public. Council after council over decades had to resolve the issue. Matters in the past have passed the body and have taken effect immediately. This matter in the past in the next calendar year and in the next fiscal year, but never after the next election. That has never occurred, that I know of, at least in the past 50, 60 years. Some have been done with the Compensation Board advisory on what to do. Some have been without. For the record, the Compensation Advisory Board made no recommendations from 2006 to 2013. They made one in 2013, and that did not include this body. It did not include the body. It's not incumbent upon them to do that. It's incumbent upon us. After 8 years without an adjustment, I feel strongly that the adjustment is due now. And I appreciate all of your participation in this public forum and in the hearing. It's a difficult matter to talk about. The exercise, when completed, will probably be the most publicly vetted salary adjustment around. Unprecedented, noticed by the Ethics Commission on this matter. Unprecedented. The Law Department of the City of Boston testified to its interpretation of the law here in front of us, and you all have a copy of their position, because I asked for it in writing. If you don't have it now, Christine will present it to you, and you'll have that. And it's no different from what we heard from them when they were here in the chamber. All law departments in the past, they have to stamp it, and they did. This is different. For a $300,000 matter, and let's put it in perspective today, we're talking about a $120 million order for a school. For a $300,000 matter, we've seen more print and media coverage on this because of it's awkward. And now we're going to have a public debate. So what we're really going to do here today is we're going to have a negotiation amongst ourselves in the public realm to be absorbed by the public as state law requires. And now, just on that aside, it does not require the state legislature to do that, but it requires the Boston City Council to do that. So, the open meeting law requires us to debate our differences in the public forum. I set a ceiling on a salary. All right, I doubt if anybody's going to raise it here today. So I set a salary ceiling. I set a term based on our understanding of the law at the time, which was immediate because it had happened before. Chapter 39 requires us to set the salaries. The state law provides us with that power. Chapter 19 states municipal employees cannot directly benefit from a matter they vote on. And it's an interpretation by the Ethics Commission and our own law department that we shouldn't do that. So the parameters are set for public debate on the matter. I look forward to it. The effective date, immediate, January 2015 or January 2016. And based on the laws impacting this, conflicting or not, I will move on an amendment to adopt 2016 as the effective date to ensure that there's no impropriety by this body. I reserve the right, as we all should, as a council, to resolve that potential conflict of these laws, not for us, but for the future of all councils. The amount included, as you all know, is an aggregate amount over a 10-year period now, which that will be, and probably 12 and 14 and 15 years, because unless there's some other mechanism that gets developed later on, this is not going to arise again in this forum for a long time. It comes out to about $2,500 a year over the 10 years. It's equal or less than average of all city employees for over those 10 years. And so I believe that the council deserves a significant amount. You as members have an opportunity to amend, if you so choose, within the parameters of the law, within the parameters of the open meeting law. It's required. So although it's ugly, it's the only way that we get to do this. Let me remind all, based on the amount I am offering you, you will not, each and every one of you, once the amendment, if so passed, that I amend the document, you will not directly benefit from this. The idea is that counselors of the future will get a raise that is due them. It's almost become a principle matter because we are not directly benefiting from this. And since you are in the job, no one can judge better what you deserve. Do Boston City Councilors deserve an increase going forward in 2016 if you adopt the amendment? So in the aggregate, and we've made the salaries of other cities in across America, that this is within range of many of them. We've made all the arguments in the hearing, and I'm not going to go over that. I would just say, though, in a last pitch to you, that the Boston City Council costs each Bostonian under $9 per year to have this institution, every single one of us, staff, cameras, electricity, all of it, counselors. $9. I think is the cost of a weekly subscription to a daily newspaper is more than that. So I move to amend, Chairman, I move to amend docket 1471 to change the effective date upon passage to January 2016. I need a second. Thank you for that second.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chair recognizes Councilor Matt O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to amend docket number 1471.
Can we have a recess?
Brief recess. Council is back in session. We have an amendment before the body, just to explain. The amendment before the body has to be dealt with before we can accept another amendment. So I hope everybody's clear. And the amendment put forward at this time is to change the effective date of any salary adjustment that this body passes. And seconded by another member. Everybody okay? Okay. Oh, President Linehan, Chair recognized.
Because I spoke previously on the entire matter, the docket matter, I'd just like to briefly state, as it's related to this amendment. This amendment would resolve any conflict for us in all matters related to whether it's conflict of interest law or and also Chapter 39. So that's why I bring this forward and ask you to support the change of this date to this matter.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley, do you want to speak on this amendment? Okay. Councilor Presley? Okay. So the amendment before the body is, would you read the amendment, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Amendment of Councilor Bill Linehan to docket number 1471. Section 2 of docket number 1471 shall be amended by striking in its entirety and replacing it with the following. Section 2 shall read, the provisions of this ordinance shall take effect on January 4th, 2016. This is filed in the council on October 8th, 2014.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilor Baker?
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Siomo?
Yes.
Councilor Siomo, yes. Councilor Flaherty?
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Jackson?
Yes.
Councilor Jackson, yes. Councilor LaMattina? Councilor LaMattina, yes. Councilor Linehan?
Yes.
Councilor Linehan, yes. Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy, yes. Councilor Murphy? Councilor Murphy, yes. Councilor O'Malley?
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Presley? Councilor Presley, yes. Councilor Wu? Councilor Wu, yes. Councilor Yancey? Councilor Yancey, yes. And Councilor Zachem? Councilor Zachem, yes. We have a unanimous for passage of the amendment on docket number 1471.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Chair now recognizes Councilor O'Malley.
Amend docket 1471. Point of order, Madam Clerk, do you have to read it and then I speak on it?
Yes. So we're just receiving it now. So may we distribute?
Please.
Please. Good. So that everyone has the matter before them.
Thank you.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, amendment of Councilors Matt O'Malley and Ayanna Presley to docket number 1471. Docket number 1471 shall be amended in section 1 by striking the words $112,500 and replacing it with the following words of $94,673. Docket number 1471 shall further be amended by adding the following provision. The salary of the city councilors shall be adjusted annually every year using the median household income for the city of Boston, filed in the City Council October 8th, 2014.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I think one thing that we all agree on, perhaps the only thing we all agree on, and has been mentioned several times, is how uncomfortable this whole notion of voting for our own salary adjustment can be. The Council President is absolutely right. That is the mechanism that we have. But it doesn't have to be that way. When this was first introduced, I said that I thought the number proposed was large, and I thought that we should look at the way other legislative bodies deal with their salary adjustments, most specifically the Massachusetts State Legislature, which indexes any adjustment to their salary with the median income of the average Massachusetts resident. So Councillor Presley and I, running with that, took the numbers that would adjust in Bostonians, the median income of Bostonians, starting with 2007 and seeing how it changes. The interesting thing about this is that it can both increase and decrease. And as we've seen, and I'll very briefly just run through the numbers, 2007, it increased 5%. 2008, 2%. 2009, 8%. 2010, it decreased 12%. That, of course, was the Great Recession. 2011, it decreased 2%. 2012, it increased 5%. 2013, it increased 4%. These numbers are somewhat approximate, but essentially it would be about a 9% or 10% approximate increase from our last salary adjustment, our last raise, which brought the salary to $87,500, to today. That figure, if we were to use the same criteria, would represent $94,673. Admittedly, it's a smaller raise, but I think it's a fair raise. I think it's an option that we can now say by passing this amendment, it allows for the changes and that associate with the fact that there's been no salary adjustment in 7 or 8 years, and it also sets a precedent going forward that we never have to do this again. This would enshrine, and we could figure out ways going forward, be it through charter reform with Councillor Baker or through other mechanisms, to enshrine this so that the Boston City Council no longer has to pay for or set its own pay raise. I think it makes sense. I think it's financially responsible, and I think it can end this conversation once and for all. It recognizes the fact that there hasn't been an adjustment. It gives one of about just over $7,000. I think that's fair. I think the figure $94,673 is fair. And most importantly, it sets the precedent going forward so that we never have to do this again. Thank you to Councillor Presley, who I know will speak on this, who is my partner in coming up with this. Urge passage, and hope you can all vote for this as we go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Chair recognizes Councilor Presley.
Thank you. Is it appropriate to say Vice President now? Is that what we said? Thank you, Councilor Stiomo. I rise and thank Councilor O'Malley for partnering with me in this. From the outset, I've maintained that the amount proposed is simply too high, but moreover, that we are in an awkward and unenviable position, and we need to provide a predictable mechanism moving forward. So I did not want to simply just vote no without offering something. You're right, Councilor Linehan, this is not about us. This is about the body. And so bearing that in mind, I think this is an opportunity with an indexing to the AMI to provide moving forward a mechanism that is transparent and that is predictable, both for taxpayers and also for this body. I think the proposed amount is one that is fair. It enables us I believe it is fair, and I believe, again, moving forward, it sets a precedence. We are applying in our proposal with the amount before you the very mechanism that we are proposing be the permanent mechanism so that we are not in this unenviable and awkward position moving forward. So, again, pleased to partner with Councilor O'Malley on this. I think this is a fair compromise. I urge you to give it every consideration. It does provide a rationale, a formula, and a best practice, not just for now, but for future generations for this council. And it's really critical that we provide that transparency and that predictability for the members of this body today and moving forward, but moreover for taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilor Wu.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I just wanted to rise and commend the sponsor for opening it up to discussion and for my colleagues for all of the different angles that we're really trying to resolve this issue. I would not be in support of this amendment, and I just wanted to explain my position. I do agree that we need predictability for taxpayers, that we need to find a different mechanism going forward. I do not believe that automatic indexing is the most accountable way to do that. That assumes that the original level is the absolute correct level and the fair level. So that would have been that $87,500 set in 2006, that is the level that it should be at forever. I think the state legislature's method leaves out true accountability in adjusting the role and the job to changing times, with continued professionalization of the Council of Government Services, with changing economic circumstances that may not be reflected in the average median income. I believe there's a chance for that to become misaligned, and over time, that just to get worse and worse. I think in addressing predictability, the best way to do that is to push the effective date of any change over to the next term, because that means that anybody who's pulling papers to run knows what the salary will be. All voters, as they're making their decisions for who to vote for, they know what the exact positions criteria will be, including the salary. So for me, predictability is addressed in pushing the effective date up to take effect in the next term. I would much rather see a model with an independent commission setting salaries. I believe no matter what, the decision on what is fair can't in an unbiased way be made by us counselors as individuals, even if it's for future terms. So I would not support a raise unless it is done by some sort of independent commission. That's different from the model that we have. The Compensation Advisory Board is not fully independent. The 5 members are appointed by the mayor, so there needs to be some change to that if we're going to continue with that model. And furthermore, there's no automatic inclusion of their recommendation in the budget. So I believe that the ideal model would be an independent commission that sets the salaries, reviews the salaries, and that the council would vote on in its appropriation manner, but not in the manner of deciding what the initial amount should be. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilor Zachem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to applaud Councilors O'Malley and Presley on this amendment. I think this is an important discussion to have. I'd also like to acknowledge President Linehan's cooperation with the Corporation Council, with others who had some concerns about the propriety of the timing of the initially proposed raise. I would also just like to take this opportunity to say I will be voting no on the raise, regardless of which amendments currently introduced have achieved the necessary votes to pass. As I've said before, after just 9 months on the council, I find it hard personally to justify a raise at this time. I recognize that many of my more senior colleagues are in a different position, especially many of you with families at home. But I think it's also important to note that as a body, we are well compensated compared to many, many Bostonians. I know how hard all of us work, but I look forward to continuing working with Councilor Wu on this matter, as she just mentioned, about creating an independent commission to take this issue out of the hands of the council moving forward. I think it's important as a matter of appearances to the public, but also an important matter for us to focus on the work and not spending as much time as we have recently discussing these issues. So I do applaud this discussion. I think having it in an open process, I think the hearing was important. I think having this, as Council President Linehan said, negotiation in an open forum, while certainly awkward, as has been noted numerous times, is important. I think it's a real testament to the quality of everyone on this council and the hard work we do every day. Having said that, I will reiterate, I will be voting no on any proposed raise today. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Councilor. Chair recognizes Council President Linehan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I rise to commend the 2 authors and to present a different position and that's very important for what is going on here today. It seems that it is thought out in the sense that you're looking forward to the future of how this can be handled, but the original docket truly handles that this is not for us, this is for the future, that there is plenty of time, as Councilor Wu and Councilor Zachem have indicated, to move forward on a new formula, a new method in which we do this. And I personally believe that less than $95,000 a year as an increase from $87,500 over a 10-year period is extremely low and is not indicative of the amount of work, the amount of time, those 10 years that counselors and many here and many of us that going forward would find that an appropriate amount. So I will be voting against this amendment.
Thank you. The question now comes on acceptance and passage. Oh, I'm sorry, we need a second. Second. We have a second. All in favor?
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. Clerk may call the roll, please. This vote is for the amendment offered by Councilor O'Malley and Councilor Presley, docket 1471.
So this is the second amendment. The first amendment did prevail. Councilor Baker?
no.
Councilor Baker, no. Councilor Siomo?
No.
Councilor Siomo, no. Councilor Flaherty? Councilor Flaherty, no. Councilor Jackson? Councilor Jackson, no. Councilor LaMartina? Councilor LaMartina, no. Councilor Linehan?
No.
Councilor Linehan, no. Councilor McCarthy? No. Councilor McCarthy, no. Councilor Murphy? Councilor Murphy, no. Councilor O'Malley? Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Presley? Councilor Presley, yes. Councilor Wu? Councilor Presley, Councilor Wu, no, I'm so sorry. Councilor Yancey? Councilor Yancey, no. And Councilor Zakem? Councilor Zakem, no. Mr. President, the amendment.
Two to 11 vote. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Chair now recognizes Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I have an amendment to docket 1471, which I would like the clerk to read at this point.
Thank you. Just to keep track of all this, this is the third amendment on docket number 1471. Amendment of Councilor Stephen J. Murphy to docket number 1471. Docket number 1471 shall be amended in section 1 by striking the words $112,500 and replacing it with the following words of $107,500. So it would be $107,500, filed in the council on October 8th, 2014.
Councilor Murphy.
Speaking on the amendment,
We need a second, Councilor Murphy. Thank you.
I want to thank Council President Linehan for embarking on this process. I think Council President Linehan now knows the old axiom, heavy grows the head that wears the crown. During the last 3 years, I was the president of the body, and in 2006, I was vice chair of the Committee on Government Operations, the last time a city council pay increase took effect. And at that time, it took effect in a different fiscal year. We took it up in May of 2006 to take effect July 1st in 2006. So it was a different fiscal year, but it was the same calendar year, and there was no red flag from state ethics or our corporation council had approved it as pertaining to or appealing to being lawful. Let me say this. So it's been 8 years since this year, and now the amendment we've struck would make it 10 years that the members of this body have not had a pay increase. And we all know that in 2008, the stock market basically tanked, and there were people that were unionized members of our workforces that took wage deferrals and other things during that difficult time. In 2010, it continued. In 2010, which would have been the fourth year, and we had taken up 3 pay increases in 1998, again in 2002, and again in 2006, keeping our body at the time in line with everybody else. 2010 was the next available time, or the next scheduled time, where there was supposed to be a salary adjustment for the city council. We were still in recession, and we had a very explosive arbitration award for the Boston Fire Department come before us in 2010, which was the tempest in the teapot at the time. And I say that because this is today's tempest in a teapot. We've had others in prior years, but there's always a reason to get everybody inflamed on an issue, and then it kind of goes away. And in 2010, the council basically deferred and took no increase because it was a bad economic time and because it was a thing that people were hurting in the neighborhoods. That recovery has come, but mostly everybody. And since that time, the city council has worked with Mayor Tom Menino up until the last 9 months, and since then, Mayor Martin Walsh, to make certain that our city is in a strong fiscal position. And during that time, since 2006, the city of Boston has successfully negotiated with its union workers salary increases over 93 times, which were approved by this body, the legislative. And here are the 93, if anybody wants to see them. So it was three different cycles, if you will, of approvals of collective bargaining increases for every City of Boston employee. And the council has been a responsible partner in the fiscal health of this city. This council and councils before it have been responsible partners. We've done so at a time when Washington, D.C. can't get a federal budget passed. They're at a grinding halt down there. And the state legislature has walked away to the tune of almost $200 billion less in local aid that the city of Boston gets to balance its budget. Yet this council and councils before it acted appropriately with your leadership as chair of Ways and Means, Mr. Vice President, and with all of us working together. And so during the 2 or 3 cycles, there have been 18,000 or 18,500 City of Boston employees who have seen their pay bump up 3 times to basically keep with inflation and keep their cost of living going up. Are we to be browbeat by the opponents of this? And who are the opponents? The opponents are the media. The media, they're the ones beating the drum, making it a story after story after story. The president talked about a $300,000 impact. It's now less. And the Corporation Council came in here and didn't give us a legal opinion. He gave us a political opinion about Chapter 59 and Chapter 268A and which might hold sway over the other. And I believe, as the president does, that the Corporation Council's political opinion was wrong on that, and that the City Council has remedied that by going forward, effective date January of 2016, but still needs to press the point in a court of law as to which state statute holds sway. Does that mean that the 13 people in this body are the only people that shouldn't get a pay increase since 2006? Because everybody else got one. So it's all on the backs of the 13 of us, and that will keep the editorialists, most of whom who don't live in the city, happy if the 13 of us stay at. So I've offered an amendment which brings the total to $107,500. And I do so because if the City Council had gotten the increase that every rank and file employee of the city has gotten over the course of the 8 years, our current salary today would be $103,300. That's just getting the same amount as the rank and file employee. And then when we put 2 more years on it, because we do, that goes to $108,900. Next year would be 106.6, 2015, and then 108.9, because we've settled some contracts that go up to 2017. So I'm cutting the 1089 back to 1075 because you know what? The editorialists keep beating the drum that it's too much money. They don't walk in our shoes. I work Saturday. I had to go to an event on Saturday. I had to put I call this the uniform. I put the uniform on Saturday. Others were working Sunday. Most of them aren't out at night between 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. It's at community meetings. Councilor Baker said it best when the first 1471 was originally filed, when he said, when am I not a member of the city council? When I get home at night. I go to church on Sundays. Some people will find that hard to believe, but I come out of the steps of the church and I'm Councilor Murphy, Sunday morning getting constituent requests. And it's not a bad life. I'm not saying that, it's terrible to be Councilor Murphy. I'm just saying you don't turn this job off. And many of us have made sacrifices to stay here. And many of us have been part of a solution for this city. When we saved the city $14 million on interest, on refinancing the bonds to keep libraries open. We saved community centers from being closed in the neighborhoods of Boston. We gained $32 million in increases over reformulating the pilot formula. Those are just small increases. We're talking about a $270,000 increase now, $270,000 increase for our body, and keeping it in line with rank and file workers. I think 1075 works. It should shut them up, the editorialists. I guarantee you there'll be another reason why they can't support it. That's coming, because it's the dance that goes on all the time. But I do recommend that you think about the position you hold, not as if you hold it, but as the fact that it's a worthwhile position and it's a necessary position that deserves to be paid better than under a 3-watt bulb. I'm asking you to support my amendment, and I'm asking this to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Before we put this properly before the body, we must poll the committee. I'm sorry. Chair recognizes Councilor Jackson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I rise because I think this is an important issue, and I'm not going to be silent on this important issue. I want to first say that I will be supporting Councilor Murphy's amendment, and I've done a little research. And I think we should all dig into the books and do a little research. Pew actually put together something in 2011, and they were actually looking at the city of Philadelphia. I think we need to put it in perspective. The amount that we spend as a council per seat. And so what Councilor Murphy's proposal would do is he would move it from $450 to $470 per seat. Our office staff, as well as us, and benefits all in. Let's talk about what other cities spend per seat. In Phoenix, they spend $418,000. San Antonio, they spend $421,000. 454, actually, it'll be $20,000 more than this. So 474 for Boston. Chicago, 607. San Jose, 823. Philadelphia, 1.1 million. New York, 1.2 million. San Diego, 1.3 million. Detroit, 1.47 million. Washington, D.C., 1.49 million. And Los Angeles, 1.69 million. And I'm going to skip over the numbers, and I'm just going to speak from the heart and tell a little bit of the secrets that are in the sausage to being able to do this job. Unlike many people in this room, I didn't win the first time that I ran, and I was a state. There's a bunch of us in here who didn't win. So for those who won, props to you. I actually was a state employee at the time, and the requirement of being a state employee was to take off at least 6 months prior to the date of the primary election. I went without income for 6 months. I risked my house, and I will note, and it is on record, it's public record, I almost lost my house. That's something that happened to me. And so I want to just put that out there. I went without pay for 6 months, and I lived on savings. And I spent way more than I would normally spend because I went to fundraisers and I went to lots of events. And I didn't do as well as many folks in terms of raising money in my campaign fund. So I spent out of my pocket. And I spent because I believe in this city. I believe in the ability to come in here and actually make change in a city. And then I lost. And I got a job in between. And then I ran again. And at that point, I actually didn't make salary at that point. Many people, to be here, ladies and gentlemen, cash out their 401k. There's only a couple of folks in here who are lawyers, who are able to do something on the side. Most of us, and we have professionalized what is happening in this room. Most of us are full-time only the work that we do here. And it's because we love the work, it's because we love the city, and we love the opportunity to be change agents. And it is in my mind, public service shouldn't be a subscription to being to poverty. In all honesty, I think it is absolutely important that people in this space and who do this work are justly compensated. And I would note that I believe, and we're voting, and I want to thank Councilor Linehan for putting forward the amendment. We're not voting for this council. None of us in this room are guaranteed a seat other than the clerk. None of us in this room are guaranteed a seat on the next council in 2016. We have to justify to the people who vote for us why, if we choose to be back here, that we should be back here. So the legislation in front of us is actually legislation for the future council. And I believe, in all honesty, that there are people who shy away from this type of service. And understand, we don't have an elected school committee. We have cities and towns all across this state where there are people 18, 19 years old who are able to serve in public office because they have elected school committee. We don't have that. This is the lowest entrance into city government, which is at the city council level. And so there's a lot of people who shy away from being able to do this job because they think about their family, because they think about whether or not they could actually do this job. And I would submit that we actually will get more challengers, which I think is a good thing, that we will actually attract more attention to the important work that happens here at the council, and that we will continue to draw many, and even more qualified people to this job. And so I would say, ladies and gentlemen, each and every person here, and I respect everyone here, because I know what I went through to get here. I know what I gave up to get here. I know the sacrifices that I made to get here. And I'll be honest, I'm single. I can't imagine what this would be like if I had a family. And so it is the right thing, I believe, to do to compensate people for the work that they do. We don't have and I don't want one, but we don't have a 10-year out in terms of residency. And we have people who live in some of the most expensive areas in this city who are on this body. And I love them for that. I think we have an opportunity to do what's right. I think we haven't done what's right prior to this. We've kicked the can down the road, and that's why we are where we are right now. We've let it all add up, and now there's a huge number, there's a huge percentage, and there's a great deal of attention. Well, people didn't send us here to do easy work. They sent us here to do the hard work. And so I'm about doing that work, and I think we need to do the right thing by each and every individual in here, each and every person who will serve here, because as I noted, this is not for us. None of us are guaranteed to ever actually receive this raise, because we may not be here, and we may not choose to be here. But I do believe for the next council that we will be leaving it a little bit better. We'll be leaving this seat a little bit more competitive, and we will leave our city in a better place. And we have places where we make up 0.25% of the general budget. That's what we're talking about here. And we look at every single dollar as an important dollar that we spend in this city. And we value the work of every city employee. And I know there's a lot of folks out there who don't think city employees work hard. I see them work hard. We pick up the phone and they do things on a regular basis for us. But we are here. We are present. We are accounted for. We do work Saturdays. We do work Sundays. We do work holidays, whether or not we actually have them, quote unquote, off. I will probably see each and every one of you on Monday at some event. So when it comes down to this, yes, we're going to get fingers pointed at us. Yes, this is the most public performance review that anyone has ever had. But when it comes down to it, again, people sent us here not for the easy work, but to do the hard work. And I will be voting in the affirmative, Mr. President. And I think we are doing the right thing, and I will be able to move forward and feel as if we are doing the right thing. Again, not by this body, because none of us are guaranteed a seat here, but by the future body that moves forward in January 16th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Chair recognizes Councilor Matt O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise just to say that I appreciate the amendment and the intent. I do think that 1075 is still too high of a number, and we'll be voting against this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilor Charles Yancey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was tempted not to speak today. This is not the subject you want to spend your time on. Each and every one of you make great sacrifices to serve the people of Boston. I know for a fact there's not one member of this body who ran for the Boston City Council because of his salary. I know that's the case. You ran because you wanted to serve not yourself, you want to serve others. So here we are, addressing an issue of our own compensation. I also know that there are a number of you who served in the executive branch of government, the administrative branch, who took pay cuts to be here. And your counterparts, had you stayed in those positions, you'll be making a lot more than what you're making today. And as I reported earlier in the year, there are more than 4,000 current employees of city government who are making more than the current salary of the city council. So the question really comes, what does this body deserve? Now, if anyone's going to ask you, anyone viewing these discussions or the media, and I do recognize that the Boston Globe employees, for example, suffered a pay cut, which they have yet to recover from. So if you ask anyone who believes he or her is worth their salt, do you deserve a raise? The answer has to be yes, because if it's no, then you have some doubt about your contribution to this institution we call the City Council or to the people of Boston. I have no such doubts. And I stand here as someone who loses more battles than he wins, but I will continue to fight, not for me, but for future generations and for the people of Boston. Now, I have more history here than any other member. I'm not boasting or bragging about it, it's just the facts. And I know that we have faced this issue time and time again. Most years, we decide not to deal with this issue. So on those rare occasions when we do, I think it's notable. And even Boston City Councilor Albert Dapper O'Neill was in a quandary when he was asked to vote on a raise. His solution was to vote against the raise But once he got it, he donated the excess or the increase to charity. That was his choice. Councilor Turner voted against the raise. And not only that, he went to his own pocket to finance a district office, which most of us cannot afford to do. And you're looking at someone who, the father of 4, and my last was born when I was in my second term on the Boston City Council. He's now 27 years old. And I know that I could not have afforded to serve on this body if my wife and I, Marzetta and I, did not purchase our home in 1975. The current salary of the Boston City Council today is not enough to purchase a home in the Boston area today. We live in a single-family home in the Melville Park section of Dorchester, and neighbors have purchased their homes for $700,000, $800,000, and $900,000. I couldn't afford that today. So I know that we're asked to make a difficult decision. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised my wife hasn't filed for a divorce since I'm not making that much money. My counterparts who graduated from Tufts University and from Harvard University are making at least $50,000 or $60,000 more than what we're making, which is fine. They deserve it. But I just say to the president of this body that he was right in submitting his initial ordinance to take effect immediately. He was right to do that. And I understand the political forces that say that we cannot do that because it's viewed as being too self-serving. I understand that. But I also take umbrage a little bit to testimony from an employee of the Corporation Counsel's office who admitted that this was not an official legal opinion. It was his personal opinion. And I thought that was kind of hypocritical because he was actually on staff when those previous awards were made, and not one peep from him. And I also know that the current Corporation Counsel appealed to this body through the mayor to bend the rules so that he could continue as our Corporation Counsel, even though he is not a resident of Boston, a direct violation of the residency law. But we bent the rules, we modified it, so he's in compliance. So I say all that to say this. Vote on this whichever way you want in good conscience. I don't agree with the amendment before us that lowers it just by $5,000 2 years from now. I don't agree with that. And I don't think it's going to make a bit of difference, to be honest with you. You're going to be criticized whether it's $20,000 or $25,000. If it's $5,000, you're going to be criticized because there are those in the audience who don't believe that the city council should be paid anything at all. So don't lose any sleep over that. I believe what the original proposal of the president to raise the salaries to $112,500 to take effect immediately, as we've traditionally done, with a minor exception, would have been the right way to go. And I would have voted for it without any pangs of guilt or conscience. Because you folks are worth it. Even our newly elected members who feel guilty about getting a raise after only being on a job a couple of months, they are right. They may not have earned it in that brief period of time, but their commitment to serve others is unquestioned. And it's difficult to vote yourself a raise, but we all know that. But I just wanted to say that I will not be voting for this particular amendment. I don't think we should change that dollar amount at this time. And I also believe that it should take place sooner than 2016. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilor Ayanna Pressley.
Thank you. And I thank all my colleagues for the eloquent remarks. I wish we could draw this sort of attention for the healthy debates that we have in this well about trauma and violence and poverty and the achievement gap. I do, but I think the fact that we are having such a robust debate does make the case that perhaps there is a rush to both settle on an amount that is fair and to determine a process that is fair. and predictable. Councilor Yancey, I would never challenge the contributions of any member of this body. I'm proud to serve on this body and proud to serve with each and every one of you. But for me, this is not about criticism from editorial boards or anything other than public accountability to the people who've sent us here and fairness. And so in the spirit of fairness, although I very much appreciate Councilor Murphy's contribution to this debate, I will be voting in the negative for this amendment. It is still simply too high. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. We will now take a roll call vote on Counselor Murphy's amendment. Madam Clerk, will you read the roll?
Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Siomo.
Yes.
Counselor Siomo, yes. Counselor Flaherty. Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Jackson. Counselor Jackson, yes. Counselor LaMartina. Counselor LaMartina, yes. Counselor Linehan.
Yes.
Counselor Linehan, yes. Counselor McCarthy.
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy, yes. Counselor Murphy. Counselor Murphy, yes. Counselor O'Malley. Counselor O'Malley, no. Counselor Presley. Counselor Presley, no. Counselor Wu. Counselor Wu, yes. Counselor Yancey. Counselor Yancey, no. And Counselor Zachem. Counselor Zachem, no. There is a 9-4 Counselor Murphy's amendment, which is amendment number 3, changing the amount to $107,500.
Thank you. Council will be in brief recess. Council will be back in session. Just a brief explanation. We are moving on a final vote for each amendment that was offered by Councilor Murphy. I'm sorry, the final vote, we need to poll the committee.
So this is the Committee on Government.
We've already amended it, so this is the
As amended.
polling, the amended, to bring it out of committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry for not explaining properly.
Okay, thank you.
So this is a poll of the Committee on Government Operations on the amended version of docket number 1471, which is an increase, a change in the year to 2016 and decreasing the amount to $107,500. So, but this is to move to bring this matter before the body for properly before the body for a vote. Chair of the committee is Councilor Flaherty. Yes. Councilor Jackson is vice chair. Yes. Councilor LaMartina. Councilor LaMartina, yes. Councilor McCarthy. Yes. Councilor McCarthy, yes. Councilor O'Malley. Councilor O'Malley, no. Councilor Presley. Councilor Presley, no. And Councilor Wu. Councilor Wu, yes. The matter is now properly before the body.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. You may now read the roll. Call the roll.
On docket number 1471 as amended, Councilor Baker. Yes. Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Siomo.
Yes.
Counselor Siomo, yes. Counselor Flaherty. Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Jackson. Counselor Jackson, yes. Counselor LaMartina. Counselor LaMartina, yes. Counselor Linehan.
Yes.
Counselor Linehan, yes. Counselor McCarthy. Counselor McCarthy, yes. Counselor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy, yes. Counselor O'Malley. Counselor O'Malley, no. Counselor Presley. Counselor Presley, no. Counselor Wu. Counselor Wu, no. Counselor Yancey. Counselor Yancey, yes. And Counselor Zachem. Counselor Zachem, no. Mr. President, we have 9 votes in the affirmative. This amended version of document has prevailed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. There is one late file matter which, in absence of objection, will be added to the consent agenda. Seeing, hearing no objection, the matters are added. The chair moves adoption of the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Agenda is adopted.
Counselor LaMartina, for what purpose do you rise? You're all set. Counselor Murphy.
Mr. President, Councilor LaMartina and I would like to wait until the adjournment part before we both rise.
Well, we were at the memorials part of the proceeding.
We are there now?
Yes, we are. And so I took my duty seriously and
Yes.
recognized Counselor LaMartina,
Thank you.
even if he's not ready. Counselor LaMartina, for what purpose do you rise?
I would like unanimous consent to make a statement.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week, East Boston lost a legend, one of a true hero of us in East Boston. Anthony Albano was a friend, a father, a mentor to everyone that knew him. His death last week marked an end of an era, and it goes without saying that he will be sorely missed, not just in East Boston, but in every neighborhood throughout the city. For those who went to his wake at East Boston High School on Sunday, it was like a major event. I have never, ever seen anything like that in my life. There were lines, people waiting in lines for hours. And I wish you were there just to see the line, the diversity in that line. There were black, white, Latino. There were handicapped people. There were athletes. There were judges. It was just remarkable. His wake was at 3 o'clock, and something unusual happened. 2 jets, F-15 jets, at 3 o'clock, I have no idea how that happened, flew out by East Boston High School, over East Boston High School that day. But Anthony Albano, as he's known in East Boston as the Great One, and it's a name that he gave to himself, but we call him the Great One. And I have been friends with Anthony. I have known him since I was a little kid. He used to play basketball at the Paris Street Gym, softball at the Paris Street Playground. So I knew him as a little kid because he was always loud. When I went to East Boston High School in 1974, they hired Anthony Albano. As you know, that was the first year of the segregation in the Boston schools. And they hired Anthony Albano to go to East Boston High School and keep peace. And if there was any problems, that he would be there. So for 40 years, Anthony Albano has been at that high school taking care of kids. And there were so many stories. I had so many tributes last week, but I wanted to read one because this one right here hit home for me because he is a kid that works in City Hall today. And if it wasn't for Mr. Albano, this kid probably would maybe dead because of drugs or in jail. But I wanted to read it. It said, "Dear God, in about 5 hours Sabbath time, you'll be receiving a visitor. He'll be adjusting the elastic waist on a pair of sweatpants in a back and forth manner of motion. He won't have on his glasses because he doesn't need them anymore. He doesn't need his East Boston jacket either because definitely he'll have it on anyway. He's short, loud as shit, and probably asks, 'You all right?' Even after he finds out you're the creator, he'll say something like, 'Even the boss needs help sometimes.' His name is Anthony. Please let him in. I owe him more than I could ever repay him with my time here on earth. He was the only person who believed in me when everyone gave up. Everyone. My life is the way it is today because of him. He left a lifetime of memories in all our hearts. I know he knew how much I loved him, and I also knew how much he loved and believed in me. I used to smile just hearing him talk when I was 15. He made everyone smile. I'm going to miss him. Also, he's going to ask for Junior. And Junior Lombardi was a political ally. So maybe have the Angels fly him over the track so they can figure out who they are getting out of purgatory next. Photo finished. Love you, big guy. And that's just one of many, many stories that we heard since Anthony passed. I will miss him. When I ran for city council, the first person who I went to see was Anthony Albano. And Anthony Albano worked for me morning, noon, and night. Every single day he was there. When I started Eastie Pride Day 26 years ago, he was with me from day one of Eastie Pride Day. We've been doing it 26 years. Anthony truly bled blue and gold, and we will miss him. Thank you.
Councilor Murphy? You have the floor.
Martina said about my good friend Anthony Albano, I can tell people that in 1993, when I ran and finished out of the money for a city council at large, I didn't finish out of the money in Ward 1 because I had the great one as my coordinator in Ward 1. And I always did very, very well in Ward 1, not because of me, but because of Anthony Albano. And that was political contributions he made. But if you knew him, he had the heart of a lion and a good soul, and he would help anyone. And he was a role model for countless thousands of those kids that went to East Boston High School and made them believe in themselves when their lives would take a path going in the wrong direction. And I know we're all creatures of Facebook, even us people who've been around a while. I saw earlier this morning a video on Facebook about the great Albano. And I'm hoping because that video speaks better to him and his qualities than I do, that you would give us time to watch the great one last time here in the chamber, Mr. President. You could ask Kerry Jordan maybe to turn on the video.
Yeah, I just have one other counselor who
Yes.
I want to let counselors speak on this.
Yes, sir.
The Anthony Albano matter.
That's
okay.
fine. Okay. Thank you.
So, Counselor Presley, you have the floor.
Yes. No disrespect to Sal, who was one of the first people I met with in East Boston when I was running for city council in 2009. But I felt like I had really made it when I got on Mr. Albano's roster because he was just such a force of nature, really. You know, he was the first person in East Boston to believe in my candidacy, but moreover, what set him apart is that he believed in young people that all or most had given up on. I had countless conversations with him about pregnant teens who needed help, court-involved youth that people had given up on, just, I think the word that was used at his services was magnanimous, very appropriate. So there's a hole in the heart of so many of us today. But I did want to share a story. I had called Mr. Albano while he was in chemo. I was checking on him regularly to offer, prayer or a word of encouragement. And I said, you're going to be okay. You're going to keep fighting. And he said, how do you know that? And I said, because you're no punk. And he said, you got that right. So, I'll miss every single thing about him. But the wake at East Boston High School and the services in Revere are just a thumbnail, really, of the impact and the living legacy of Mr. Albano that will live on for generations to come. He changed so many lives. So rest in peace, Mr. Albano. He was walking Eastie Pride. So God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Presley. Councilor Jackson?
Unanimous consent to make a statement?
You have the floor.
I think of two quotes when I think of Anthony Albano. I think of a quote that everybody, there's attributions to Teddy Roosevelt and Zig Ziglar. It's a really cool quote, so they're probably fighting over it. But it's that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And then the other quote I think of is, if we all do a little bit, then nobody has to do a lot. Even though he did a whole lot. And my one story about Anthony Albano, and I told Sal the other day, in 2009, miraculously, I got the Ward 1 endorsement. It's probably the only endorsement I got, but it's okay. That's all good. And when we went over to East Boston, I had my team go out. We had no money to mail, so we went and put flyers on every street in sight. And so when Mayor Menino had his GOTV rally at Hibernian Hall, I had a fluffy brother and a short guy who came to my office, which is right down the street. And Mr. Albano came by and said, are you Tito Jackson? I said, yeah, I'm Tito Jackson. He said, I voted for you. I said, oh, that's great. Thank you so much for voting for me. He said, you want to know why? I said, I would really love to know why. He said, because you're the only black guy who ever came over to East Boston and put something on my car. And I said, sir, I actually believe you. I really believe you. I want to publicly thank him for helping my nephew, who was getting into trouble, a whole lot of trouble, and things that were way over his head. And Anthony Albano, he pulled him aside. He talked to him and got him on the right path. And when we think about the type of leader that we all should think about being, we don't need a title. You don't need a title. You don't need to win an election to have a difference or to make a difference in people's lives. And I think Anthony Albano, it's great that he gave himself a title, but I think it's the same title that we would all give him, not only after passing, because everyone says really great things after you pass, but in real life, in his living, he was actually able to be transformative, not only to the folks that quote unquote matter, people with those titles, but a lot of folks, a lot of young people who people throw away, who people label as being that kid or that type of kid. And I just want to thank God for being here and being able to pass and spend a little bit of time with one of the angels that he sent down to earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. And on behalf of the entire council, we will adjourn in Anthony's name. But at this time, there's a video that both Councilor Lamartine. Go ahead, Kerry.
Anthony Albano was born in 1948 and raised in the mean streets of East Boston. He is the son of Anthony and Gilda Albano, oldest of 7 boys and 6 sisters. For the first 8 years of his life, Mr. Albano was raised in a home for Italian children, then to be sent off to live with his grandmother for 4 years. He would eventually be reunited with his mother in the Maverick Project of East Boston. Mr. Albano graduated from East Boston High in 1967, remembered as a tremendous 3-sport athlete.
While I was in high school, my senior year in high school, I was captain of all 3 sports. Outstanding high school athlete of the year. I was outstanding Sandlot athlete of the year. I was prep school athlete of the year. And I tried to come back to East Boston High and coach, in which I did. I coached girls softball for 20 years. Never lost a game in the city. Coached girls basketball, boys basketball. But I just have to say that my love for all of our kids at this school has made a difference in my life and in their life.
I actually knew the great Albano when I was in high school. Albano graduated about 3 years before I did, so I think I was a freshman and he was a senior. I was impressed with the way Albano was as an athlete at Eastie, basketball player especially.
I have to tell you, my senior year was May 1968. We went to the senior prom. He was with his girlfriend, I was with a friend, and we happened to be sitting at the same table. And Anthony was always very animated, excitable. So we're sitting, and he was beside me. I had a beautiful gown on. Beautiful. The food was at the table, and all of a sudden, Anthony somehow got excited, and he jumps up, goes like this, and my plate falls on my lap. So now Anthony is kind of upset, because now I'm sitting there with the plate of food, he's standing beside me, he wants to clean me up, so now he's trying to grab stuff. The glass of water spills all over me. That's my experience with Anthony Albano. I love him.
As far as East Boston High School, we are the safest high school in the city of Boston because we all work together. There isn't nothing that we wouldn't do for our children. That's what makes this a unique school.
Albano makes the school feel like a more safe and fun environment. I know whenever I see Albano around that I'm going to get a good laugh or a good smile.
I have yet to see Albano. Every time I see him, he's happy and jolly, walking through the hallways, talking his normal trash to everybody and just enjoying the day. He's the man to see you get in trouble. You know, he'll talk to you about what the problem is, the other person, the teacher, whoever it is. And he'll tell you whether you're right or wrong. Most of the time you're wrong. But he's not going to sugarcoat it. He's going to tell you straight, whether if it's in a good way or a bad way, whether you want to hear it or not.
We have a good relationship. We're actually pretty close. I can go and talk to him about anything. Makes me think of consequences before my actions. He helps me, as in anger, calms me down and can control me better than any other administrator here.
I'm here for a reason. I'm here because I believe that all kids are good. All they need is to be loved, talked to, and nurtured. East Boston High School is a unique school. Everybody helps everybody. Doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. We're just all part of one. That's why East Boston High School is the best high school in the city.
I'll tell you one thing. You know by looking at him, he's someone that can help people, will help people, like myself as well. He would go the extra mile. He's done a lot for a lot of people. He's done a lot. And a lot of people don't realize that, well, they don't know what he does behind the scenes.
I don't think there's any figure at East Boston